All right.
We are live.
Hello, everyone, from a belated edition of the CMTK Talk Hour. And we are back, myself, CM Kosemen, and our co-host TK Sivgin.
Hello.
Hello. With the honor here must go to you, my friend, because I've been extremely busy for over a month. And I just want to thank you for egging me on to do this other episode. And I mean, today's subject is like sort of gonna be about a deep dive into the Jersey Devil creature, maybe. But before going, let's tackle our real life developments, which in some parts are more fantastic and horrifying than any cryptid I can imagine. So you take it first, my friend. How has
Yeah,
it been for you?
let's start with like the most pleasant events that happened since last episode. We both watched Avatar: The Way of Water, and
Yes, yes. And it was a great sequel, but what did you think about it?
I also thought it's great. What I love about James Cameron is that he is like honest in his passion. Like
Oh yes,
Like
oh yes.
he can be like very like cheesy and schmaltzy, but he's like honest and passionate about it, which like carries over to the viewer. And like compare
Yeah.
this with like any other movie, like the Marvel or Star Wars movies, where like every time there's like a serious moment, they like have to interject it with like some side joke because they don't want to take themselves so seriously. And you don't
Oh,
have that
true.
in Cameron movies, and I kind of love that. And I think that's kind of why these movies resonate so well with general audiences, why these are so successful movies.
Yeah, he's like a no bullshit filmmaker and like really passionate about his craft. I think like when we're talking about big films, like not art house films like Iranian cinema or something, because when we're talking about big films, he's like straight up there in the pantheon with Spielberg, like right after Spielberg maybe, and right before George Lucas, in my opinion. And then you climb down the stairs, you got other names like Scorsese or something. But you really nailed it on the head when you said that like a lot of contemporary filmmaking is too cynical, too ironic, too self-deprecating. And I really wonder like a part of that might be due to some sort of generational inferiority complex, especially when you look at like some of the Star Wars reboots and stuff. But
I
yeah,
think,
congratulations on Cameron for that
yeah,
whole.
I think it's just like this like general cycle of culture and then counterculture. Like in the 80s, you had all these like very serious action movies, and then like starting with the 90s, like with like the Bart Simpson generation, people started to be like more cynical and less serious about stuff, and that's how you got like the modern
Mm,
media where everything is kind of made fun of.
yeah, like also it's also hard to stop swinging the other way. Like I would counterpose an example, the the plight of the guy who filmed Tenet. What's his name? Christopher Nolan.
Ah, yeah, Nolan, yeah.
Then he's a case of taking himself too seriously, I think. But it's a good balance in that respect. Like Nolan's films are so serious, sometimes the humanity feels drained from them. Especially like I'm thinking about Dunkirk and that other film about serious guys doing some unidentifiable serious stuff. Tenet.
He made Interstellar, right?
He did, but even that is like when you rewatch it, it's like so like there's something flat about it. Even though like the sights and the stuff is great, like
Yeah, you're right. I know what you mean. Like when I watched it, I had a great feeling that this was like his attempt to make 2001: A Space Odyssey,
mm-hmm.
but like there was just something missing from which made that movie so magical. Like yeah, Stanley Kubrick is like a whole other dimension of filmmaker.
Oh well, I think when it comes to like the serious space movie of this decade, I think that one film with Brad Pitt in it really
Ad
took
Astra.
Ad Astra was the really good one. Yeah,
I still have to
I mean like
watch that.
oh you should. It's like the space movie Christopher Nolan wishes he might have made.
Yeah.
And I'll just leave it at that. It's like really serious. And maybe there's like 1% techiness in it, but still like really, really good movie. I would recommend it with my eyes closed to anyone else. And going back to Avatar for a bit, I actually published a like short review of it. But really, like when we sat down at the cinema, there was such a sense of finally like an immersive universe film away from all the mundane shit of daily life. Finally, it felt like swimming.
Where this movie is also so successful. It's just pure escapism, and I think that's what people need nowadays. Like people are kind of sick of serious movies that try to portray like the grittiness and depression in real life. They want to go to the movies to have fun again.
Oh yes, very, very true.
Like compare this with like King Kong in 1933 was like the same thing. It came out right in the middle of the Great Depression and like portrayed nothing of that. Instead, it was just a straight up adventure movie. And I think that's why, in part, it was so successful and so iconic.
I mean, there's a great quote by Eric Hobsbawm, the historian. He says, when talking about the Great Depression, it is a little wonder how great film theaters went up like dream palaces in the most sordid days of the Depression, like words to that effect. And those two phrases, like a dream palace, I mean, this really was one. And so
especially with the 3D effects in Avatar, like.
Ooh, yes. It's amazing to think that it was technically last year, and it's been a few months since that, and we entered the whole new year, and well, I think we got a whole set of other new reasons to seek shelter in dream palaces such as basically a conventional World War III, and I mean, we really had a bad one last week in Turkey, a couple of weeks ago, with this earthquake of the century. And being lucky to hit our country.
I think almost millennium. Like I don't know any case where there were so many earthquakes of such magnitude in such a short time in the same region.
Well, at least not in the Pacific, certainly. And what was scary about this is like even thousands of years old parts of the cities and the neighborhoods were destroyed. Like it was something clearly, I mean, even letting aside the oversight by construction developers and all that, it was something clearly that no one was ready for. And I don't know, I mean, I still think people haven't really come to terms with what happened. And it's just going to be like, fortunately, nobody I know was seriously hurt. But it's little comfort when it's been like a war zone and
like here in Switzerland, in Germany, also like there is a big Turkish diaspora. And like everyone knows someone who was affected in some way. Like even our family, we have friends. Our family has friends in Hatay, and like during the first news of the earthquakes, we messaged them and they didn't write back, and we really thought the worst had happened. Thankfully, they later did answer. They were still alive. They're okay, but apparently, like their whole neighborhood was destroyed.
Yeah, well, my family had the bad end of the stick in the August 1999 earthquake where we lost my grandmother. Istanbul. It was in the Istanbul region, and she sadly passed away in our summer house, and that was like one of like for me personally, one of the formative, deepest lore events of my life. But because of that, like I was in some ways vaccinated about the whole psychological process. So like for a couple of days, there was like this numb grief, and like, I mean, people from my day job and everything, everybody was like blanked out. Then fear comes in and everybody starts talking about, are our buildings solid enough, whatever. And then there's also a bit of rage directed against power figures and all that. Yeah. And then there's like, even like the other day I was on the bus and people are like, oh, they're taking concrete samples. I don't know what's going to happen. At least our bed is close to the window and something. And I remember going through the exact same thing, but this time around I felt like it's bizarre how like vaccinated you feel. And I felt like kind of shamed going about with my daily life. But, I mean, truth be told, I mean, it's all a bit more easier with friends and family being there for us. But it's really like, I mean, you get conditioned to it. So anyway, Jersey Devil. What
No,
else
wait.
have you
Can
been
I
doing?
wait? Like I have like one anecdote related to earthquakes.
Oh, yes.
Like in Foggia, there is this enigma of a person, like like an old man, like he kind of looks like an aging California surfer dude. And
Foça
like
is this seaside town in Turkey.
yeah,
Yes.
in the Izmir region, yeah. And yeah,
Yes.
I encountered this guy every time I was on vacation with my family,
Hmm.
and like he like just walks around the beach and says like really weird stuff and does like funny things,
Hmm.
and nobody really knows about him, but like I think like what is known is that during the 1999 earthquake in Istanbul, like he lived there and he was trapped under debris for like multiple days.
Oh.
And this like
Oh.
left some mental impact on him that left him like this weird until today. But now he is like a very like pleasant but very weird person. Like he yells at the sun and that's like he's married to her.
Oh. Guy just conducted a solar marriage.
Yeah.
But I mean, all the jokes aside, I
Like
mean,
I don't want to make fun of him. It's genuinely fascinating person.
I think every seaside place in the Mediterranean has been chosen by God to have at least one character like this, be it from an earthquake, a natural disaster, addiction, or some other sort of personal trauma, or sometimes for no reason at all. Like sometimes eccentrics just are eccentrics. But yes, I think in Turkey and in much of the Mediterranean region, no summer place is complete without one. Especially there's the whole, I think, this cathartic psychological landscape of a summer resort town in winter. And I mean, if you have spent any time in a summer place in winter, it's depressing as hell. And I mean, I spent a few months attempting to do this during COVID, and it's really dark and depressing. And like you really see in history, like historically, these places were mostly places of exile. And you really understand why they were like places of punishment rather than like some sort of sun, sand, and sea kind of place. So there, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, because tourism as we know it today is like was only invented in like the last century, really.
oh yes, for the big masses at least. I mean, for elites, they had something like the Grand Tour of Europe, and I think the British had it for like another 80 more years because they
Yeah,
pioneered
yeah, like the
modern life and
first
all that.
tourists in that sense were like some rich British people who wanted to see the Alps.
Oh yes, oh
See them
yes.
there.
The Grand Tour, they called it.
Yeah,
Well, the Romans had it too, but we don't exactly know their patterns. They seem to have had like sun and like good times tourism, and also religious tourism to certain sites. But
yeah, like you could argue the oldest form of tourism is like migrating to like certain holy spots. You know, like this one place in northern Spain where like all the medieval Christians went.
oh, Santiago de Compostela or
Exactly,
something.
yeah,
It has a
that's the
name.
name. Yeah, or of
Yeah,
course
yeah.
Mecca is like the prime example of like a pilgrimage site.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like those, like it's not vacation in the sense that we understand it today, but it was like a form of going out into the world and seeing stuff for like your own benefit.
The Romans seem to have had like our contemporary understanding of tourism too, like going to see somewhere for pleasure, or at least like not out of religious compulsion, but like going there and it's a kind of nice to have thing, like going to Paris and seeing the Eiffel Tower, so to speak. And I remember talking with a classical studies specialist friend of mine that they would write about the class even came to feature in it, strangely enough. So in the Roman world, there was also this like basically like similar to the present day, there was this great bunch of urban people who are not farmers, not peasants, or like peons in the classical sense, but they lived in the city hand to mouth. They are like the people for whom the bread and circuses were invented. And there's even like narratives by more wealthier, like elite people saying like, oh, I went to this and that place to see the temples of this and that, but the rubble is too thick that it's just detestable, and all these like
Yeah.
poor
Like
people
very
basically are
modern.
complaining. Very, very modern,
Like
scarily
the
modern.
modern attitude of like elite urban people. Yeah.
Oh, yes, yes, scarily modern, in fact. And, I think it's like a portentous warning that, it could be reset very, very rapidly. And that maybe that's the way these things are meant to be. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I think like with the war in Ukraine and like all these other crises in the whole world, really, I think like maybe I'm just one of the countless doomsayers who eventually turns out to be wrong. But I think we are in a great time of change. I'm not sure if it will be good change or negative change, but I think something
Oh,
massive is about to change.
something is about to give. I have that feeling. I mean, personally, I have, because of I'm recording my dreams every day and stuff. So among the dream recordings I cannot disclose, I also recently had this vision of like basically something explosive and big was supposed to happen on March the 5th or May the 5th, 2023. And we are recording this on the 22nd of February, 2023. And, let this be a record for posterity that if some mystical shit goes down, all the Uncle Memo may have foreseen it in his dreams.
You just
But,
reminded me, like in the video about the Bursa sky beast, you said that like when people saw it, they saw it as like an omen for an earthquake.
oh, yes, yes. And it happened a couple of months later in a part of the country nearly 600 kilometers away. So it wasn't very spot on. Like, I'm sure, like,
I mean, it probably was coincidence, but it is just eerie again to watch that video of yours today.
ooh, well, somebody else commented on that. But to play the devil's advocate, that's like the soft prophecy, because how many other weird clouds were there in other parts of the world? And like, is there a match between those and those? I don't know. But I mean, the things aside, I really believe, also, I want to state this with a caveat, because in the online sphere, especially among this far right groups, they're also salivating for the end of the world and like the hard reset, and they're going on and on about Kali Yuga, and like there's especially this one weird Italian philosopher. His name eludes me. Oh no, I should have known. There's this one weird Italian philosopher who is all about like cycles of civilization and civilization in a decline or stuff like that. But I would like to go on for a record that even though I am certain we are living in portentous times, momentous times, and there's a risk of things collapsing, I don't think it's going to be like a case of like libertarian right-wing people holding out against migrants or something like that. But it's going to be something like maybe never own a car, never go on a holiday, but there's still going to be radio. You're still going to be like living in an apartment, but maybe instead of gas, you will have installed a kind of iron wood-burning stove. And then instead of going on for Indonesian cuisine, you're just going to get like soybeans from a local market. Or maybe you'll be lucky there's going to be like a derelict ship from Argentina in port. So you're just going to be like, it's going to be like life in the immediate aftermath of the Soviet Union for many, 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 many people, I think. But I think certain like brass tacks, like electrical power, radio, stuff like that, those are going to be very difficult to roll back.
Yeah. Do you think the internet will persist?
It will persist, but you're going to have to take real good care of your computer, because microchips and stuff like, it's going to be a bit like that Demolition Man kind of thing. And I think like people may be able to roll things back relatively quicker. So maybe in like 20 to 30 years instead of like 1,000. But those 20 to 30 years, there's going to be lots of cozy moments listening to the radio next to the wood stove and just chatting. I don't know. I mean, the internet in some form, I think, will be around, but the machines people use to surf on it, they might be harder to come by. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe like computers will be restricted to libraries.
Oh, yes. Or like, I don't know. I mean, it's even going to come down to like, I mean, when telephones and televisions first came to Turkey, and this is within the living memory of my parents, and I've read a lot of memoirs about that. Like, you would apply to get the telephone, and then you would fill in some paperworks, and then you would have the telephone in a month or so. And like in one neighborhood, when the telephone came, people would just like, I don't know, bake böreks or like get some tea or something in a samovar. And they would go, ring, ring. Hello, who is it? It's our neighbor, this and that from next door. We just need to look at the telephone. So they would like eat those cookies and böreks and drink tea and just look at the telephone. And like, there's even cases of like old grannies like stroking the telephone, saying it's so brightly colored, this mica or like bakelite covering. And the same with telephone, like with the television. So like we think it's like something that drove people apart, but when you have a television, only one television in like 50 households, people would like move from household to household, like in a social way. That's at least the cozy silver lining of the whole story. But my faith in humanity and our adaptability is very strong.
Yeah.
So
I don't think like a major shift will happen, but it won't be like the apocalypse. It won't be like catastrophic. It will just be a shift in how we imagine what society is and what governments should do for people.
Oh yes, definitely.
Like, and just living standards, I wouldn't even say will get worse. They will just change.
Yeah. I think like,
I mean, like for comparison, like, like we've imagined the Roman Empire is so advanced, like socially and culturally and infrastructurally. But when you look at like the estimated lifespans of like the late Roman Empire compared with those in Europe under Charlemagne, early medieval people actually had a slightly higher lifespan than the later Roman inhabitants.
Yep, because I think when cities
were
imploded,
just more safer, more consistent because feudalism, while it is not as advanced as like a republic or something, it had its benefits for the time it was established.
Oh, I strongly agree. By the way, being a writer of extremely creepy fiction yourself, how do you feel so if our world pulled a Rome 2.0, how do you think it would pan out in your part of the world? I'm really curious to hear.
Oh, Switzerland will persist.
Oh yes, you got shelters.
You got all your money.
Well, also you got shelters, and actually you got a really resilient infrastructure, don't you?
Yeah, like it used to be that there were enough bunkers in all of Switzerland to house the entire population. Though I'm not sure if that they have kept up with that, with like changing building codes and attitudes.
Can you farm enough food to feed everyone? I think that's the biggest challenge in the upcoming.
That would indeed be a challenge, but I think there are like enough granaries to last for at least a couple of years.
Yeah.
Like a total fallout event or something.
Well, I think maybe another silver lining of our day and age is that at least in quote unquote developed countries, not many people have kids anymore. So like if you kind of live in low power mode for a generation, your population is immediately halved. And then the next generation is kind of less constrained for resources. So there's like more food for thought. Pun intended.
Anyway, where were we? We were still talking about like times of change and stuff, but we should probably move
Yeah,
on
yeah.
from that. Should we
Actually,
tell?
I was curious about like your view of the upcoming quote unquote soft apocalypse, but I think we spoke about that with
Yeah, yeah.
Switzerland having. But I was also curious about this great Malta vacation you had.
Oh yeah, like at the beginning of this month, I was with my girlfriend in Malta for 4 days. Not much, but it was, I think, enough, plenty of time to explore like the whole island because it's not that big.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, very fascinating place. Like it's the only country in the EU where the national language is a Semitic one. Because
Oh yeah, Maltese,
it's
Maltese language.
the Maltese language is basically an evolved dialect of Arabic because
Yeah, yeah.
Arabs once used to own like occupied the island before it was then conquered by the Normans from Italy.
Yeah, there's a whole bizarre intermission in the Middle Ages in which basically, contrary to what we think now, the entire Mediterranean was an Arabic Sea. And this is like the earliest centuries of the
Yeah,
caliphates. And basically even places like Sicily and Sardinia, like
exactly.
places you think today are like the most like Porco Rosso kind of Mediterranean places. But I think they had a different sensibility back then too, I think. Like,
Yeah. And did you know there used to be like even an Arabic colony in what is today like the Rhone area or the Provence area in France? Like the western
oh, yes,
half of
yes.
the Alps, there was an actual like Arabic colony sent out from Cordoba, which
Hmm,
I don't
hmm.
know the name anymore, but like they legit occupied various alpine passes throughout Switzerland. And there's like some like fringe theories that some uh, place names in Switzerland actually derive from Arabic because of that, but I don't think that's like supported by modern historians.
Whoa. I mean, certainly actually this interaction was probably where the West relearned all the classics as they were translated back from Arabic, because
Oh,
never
definitely.
forget.
Especially in Al-Andalus.
Yeah, yeah. And also, I think a lot of like 13th century, 14th century Italian classic literature. I mean, I haven't seen this directly myself, but I read claims about very direct influences and literature between Arabic literature and later on early Western literature. So like
Yeah.
it was a hothouse of exchange, let us say.
An immediate example that comes to my mind is, the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri. The way he
Oh,
describes
yes, yes,
hell
yes.
in those poems is not actually accurate to how hell is described in the Bible, but has more in
Hmm.
common with like Islamic theology and folklore on hell.
I
With
mean,
like
it's
this whole like
entirely possible.
this like circle structure of hell, like that actually comes from Islam, not Christianity.
I mean, it's entirely possible. And it seems to me like before the Renaissance, a lot of like learned culture in Europe was imported basically from former Islamic scholars and lands. And only with the Renaissance did they kind of retcon the whole thing and said basically we are Palladian Greeks now. And then there's this whole like, I mean, it's if you're listening to this and you want to do a PhD in history, go research this whole area, because it's a very, very interesting and counterintuitive field of study. Let me just
Oh,
say.
definitely. But anyway, back to Malta. It's a
Hmm.
beautiful place. The people were all very nice, and we visited some very interesting things. Like on the smaller island of Gozo, we were on like one of these like double-decker bus sightseeing tours,
Hmm.
and by coincidence, it stopped by a Neolithic museum, which I didn't even know
Oh,
existed. Like the whole Neolithic site, I only knew on I only learned about on that day, and we stopped there, went out, we went into the museum, and it was very fascinating. It was like it's called the Gigantica temple, And
Is it like giant and cyclopean and all that?
Yeah, it's apparently like before Göbekli Tepe was discovered in Turkey, it was thought that this one here was the largest and oldest remaining megalithic site known.
Whoa.
It was like constructed around 3500 BC.
Wouldn't it be fascinating if they were constructed 11 million years ago by another civilization that dwelled in what was then the giant salt valley, basically, on that was the Mediterranean
civilization. You know, there was like this whole branch of apes in Europe that is completely extinct now, and there's like some fringe theories, mostly from like racists, that like humanity actually descends from these apes, but that's not true. But anyway, what is interesting is that some Dryopithecines did experiment with bipedalism, which is where you got those theories from.
Oh, I mean, it's not impossible. I think if you rerun the theory of life, it's interesting. Everyone wants to get the monkey because everyone wants to be like the Piltdown Man is a classical example.
Yeah.
It's like so there. I mean,
or maybe
what
it was
else?
like an elephant civilization. Wouldn't that be funny?
Oh yes. Actually, it would make more sense for elephants to build structures like Göbekli Tepe and those Maltese ruins. I mean, it could be like larger sites for them to come together.
Yeah.
And
I mean, have you seen videos of like Indian elephants, how they transport wood and stuff? Like, it makes it very believable.
They're extremely dexterous. So, you know, don't.
Yeah, and the tusks are very good at holding up heavy stuff.
Oh, yes, they're very, and their trunks are extremely dexterous too. I also watched lots of videos of like elephants, Indian elephants basically painting.
Yeah.
And they can like draw circles and stuff like that.
Yeah, but many of those videos, those animals were like trained is like the wrong word because they were often abused to get that result.
So they had Pavlovian conditioning.
Yeah, especially if they actually paint like a distinct structure, like if they paint a smaller elephant, then you know that they were like trained and often abused by their trainers.
Oh, I did not know this, so maybe not the best analogy.
Especially in like those tourist attractions and stuff. That's usually a sign of animal abuse because, yeah.
Ooh, I stand corrected. All right. So, actually, I missed talking to you so much, and today was gonna be the Jersey Devil special.
Yeah, let's go. Let's just jump in, right? That's what people want to hear.
Yes. So, I think like what really drove me to this creature always was this original 1909 illustration where it looks like a weird dinosaur with wings, but also like with strange bovine features.
Yeah,
I think
it's like a bipedal goat with bat wings.
Yeah, if it hadn't been for that illustration, maybe it would have been like a more like lower tier cryptid, like the skunk ape or something like that. But I think that illustration really sells it as a unique creature, and it's funny because the earliest accounts of the creature are nothing like that. Basically, the popular folklore states that there was this like bad mama character called Mother Leeds, and then for some reason she was pregnant for the 13th time, and then she cursed the child, saying like, "I God damn it, I've had enough of this motherfucking kids in this motherfucking house." So because she cursed the kid so bad, somehow the devil cursed her. So in the year of our good Lord 1735, she gave birth to a creature with hooves, a goat's head, bat wings, and a forked tail. In other versions, this was like basically the devil himself came over and like fathered this child, let us say. And then basically this thing like flew up the chimney, like. But at this point, it's like a boring, I think, like demon baby character, and nothing like this spectacular theropod horse creature.
Yeah, but what is interesting, I'm reading that on the Wikipedia page right now, is apparently even before that Mother Leeds character existed, the the native
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
people who lived in New Jersey, the Lenape, I think that's how you pronounce it, had
Oh,
already a
yes.
legend of like a deer creature with leathery wings.
That's always a popular motive in cryptids, isn't it? Like, so some creature that's later made popular by, let us say, the dominant population in one place,
Yeah,
they immediately have a kind of, they like either dig up or maybe sometimes even invent a prequel saying like it has been here all along.
yeah,
A lot
that
of
is
US
true.
US lake monsters are like that too, like things like Ogopogo and like even the Cadborosaurus thing. Even with I think like things like the Loch Ness monster, I think you're the authority on that. But wasn't there like certain things about the Loch Ness monster that attributed it to like
Yeah, Celtic.
pagan Europeans and Celtic myths, basically?
Yeah, like in Celtic myths, there was this story of the Kelpie, which was like a creature that looked exactly like a horse, and it lived close to the water. But
Mm-hmm,
but
mm-hmm.
if you went up to the horse and tried to pet it, like your hand got stuck on its very sticky skin, and then it dragged you into the water to eat your liver or something like that.
I
And
think it needs the vitamins.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like that one character in the X-Files, to which we will come later. And
Oh, yes,
And
yes.
yeah, like, I mean, it is interesting that stories like that existed around Loch Ness and other rivers, or they now say there's like lake monsters. But I mean, if you look at the description of the creature, it looks nothing like how we imagine Nessie. It's just a horse that's evil.
And carnivores. Well, I mean, the Jersey Devil myth has like a kind of continuation along similar lines. So in some ways, I mean, it's impossible to see the effects of like the basically the original founding father colony religious extremism and like the whole storm of persecution of women as witches and stuff. So like it's certain that like this woman was on the receiving ends of some bad rumors, let us just say. And then
If
from
she
there on,
existed.
the thing kind of takes a life of its own. So apparently, what happens was like there was a general, and he was in the region examining cannons, basically artillery. Okay, and then they saw a flying creature, and then the Commodore was like, "Make ready," and the cannon was readied, and it was fired at the creature to no effect. Nothing happened. And then famously, the elder brother of Napoleon himself, Joseph Bonaparte, apparently was one day hunting on his Bordentown estate and reportedly saw the devil. And then very similar to cattle mutilations, these were also blamed for livestock killings. And then apparently there were tracks and screams. And then this lasted until like the early 1900s. In the like in even until like the 1930s and stuff like that, there were like rewards out for them, and even I think as late as 1960s, there were like strange noises and tracks heard, and people claimed it was a devil. And there was even a reward of $10,000 for the capture of the Jersey Devil in 1960. Remember, this is like after the invention of color TV. But I think like the biggest wave also happened like near the early 1900s. And then, I mean, I'm skimming through Wikipedia now. We're not as greatly prepared as you would think we are, dear listeners, but
Yeah,
I hope our conversation...
we record these episodes very spontaneously. Let's say it like that.
I hope our conversation makes for good banter. So, and I think it also made an appearance in one of our favorite TV shows, right?
Yeah, the X-Files. But there it's like, apart from the fact that it's like in New Jersey, it has like nothing to do with the legend as you've told it in that episode. In like, I think it's the first season. It's like a species of humans that has gone like feral and preys on like regular urbanized humans as prey.
Oh, yes. And they had these camouflage scenes where they could like almost cover themselves with moss and lichens.
Yeah, right.
And
right at the end, like the Jersey Devil woman, like she tries to bury herself in the dirt under like the leaf litter before she's killed.
And for somehow they managed to stay undetected in the most industrialized, most car-traveled parts of one of the most car-traveled parts of the world. But I remember like it was a distinct shot. I think it repeated for several times. Like they come to like a muddy tree or something, and suddenly these bright blue eyes open in the foliage. So that they used that shot like several times in that particular episode.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting that this new species of human did not look like American natives or any other person, but was basically like Eminem blue eyes and like.
There is like a weird subplot that don't think there's like ever any future episode that like resolves this, but like throughout the episode, Mulder thinks it's like a distinct species of human, like some Neanderthal remnant, and then when they do an autopsy on the woman, they find out it's just an anatomically modern human with no sign that this is like a distinct person or something. So it's like literally just some homeless woman living in the wilds.
Yeah, and it was like such a throwaway episode to, like X-Files. They have like the main mythos arc with like Mulder's family, aliens, Scully's dad and all that. And then every once often there are these like throwaway episodes in which they like, oh, it's just another fucking monster. And then next week it's business as usual again.
I mean, I kind of like that atmosphere. Like that's like classic 90s television where you didn't try to tell like some grand story over multiple seasons, but you had just one different monster each week.
Oh yeah.
So it's simply because of how like back then you didn't have streaming services, so people couldn't watch a whole season on one string, but only from time to time. So the stories of each episode had to be more disconnected to make sense.
Yeah, so it kind of had to stand on its own two legs. I agree. And I also like after one point when I was watching the X-Files, I used to like in my head canon, like try to see certain episodes as parallel universes, because there's no way in hell someone's going to have like that many encounters with mutants, aliens, wild men, monsters, crocodiles, lake monsters, everything, and like stay sane and actually not build up experience. Like there was this whole arc of like 2 or 3 episodes in which they tracked down this like shape-shifting human, Toombs. Remember those?
Toombs?
He's a squeeze guy. He could like
you mean the
stretch.
guy like the human who hibernates, that guy?
Yeah, I loved him. I
remember, yeah. Like there was a double, that was like one of the cases where they had him in one episode and then they later made a follow-up.
Yep, he came back for more. He actually made a cocoon, but woke up from it. And I always distinctly remember like he was tearing strips of newspaper and just licking them and making himself a papier-mâché nest, which I think was really cool, like some wasp leech man pervert kind of thing. But like, if you go through that once as a team, there's no way in hell you go to fucking Jersey next week. And this is like Sopranos extended universe. I mean, it's like the most like walk of the street, hit the pavement part of the US ever. It's not like the wilderness of Wyoming or anything, So they go there, and once again, they're like completely going through the same beats. Like there's an ambush scene, but if you were ambushed by these aliens and these like stretch men only a few weeks ago, you'd be like, okay, let's take it slow. But apparently that never happens. So there. Okay. How about another dive into the Wikipedia article for Jersey Devil?
Yes.
How about you go ahead? You go ahead for another interesting tidbit. Yeah.
Let me see. Wait, there was this one thing I was skimming. Wait.
Well, the real Jersey Devil was the friends we made along the way all the time.
But here, apparently in 1909, During this period, it is rumored that the Philadelphia Zoo posted a $10,000 reward for the creature. The offer prompted a variety of hoaxes, including a kangaroo equipped with artificial claws and bat wings.
Of course.
Isn't that amazing? If that's true, that's hilarious.
I mean, it's also apparently there's this like darker side. Like, remember how we looked at the X-Files episode, and in the episode it turned out it was just like basically some degenerate white people.
Yeah.
So apparently, during the 1700s and the 1800s, there was an area around this place called the Pine Barrens, and they were like populated by outcasts of society. And even in the 20th century, there was like a very infamous eugenics study conducted on some residents there. The infamous Kallikak family study, which kind of like tried to show in their view that basically they believe that these people had bred themselves into a degenerate and sort of like dumb and evil subspecies. But of course, this was like a fashion of the times. I mean, eugenics was very popular in the US in that time.
Yeah.
And apparently they had photographs of this like degenerate family who was also living in the same broad region as the Jersey Devil. And they actually basically airbrushed their faces to make them look more evil and degenerate and weird. And so that's like another dark side note. I'm always like interested, like there's this kind of like beat by beat similarities between cryptozoology and the annals of human exploitation and injustice, let me just say.
Yeah, it's
happens.
Right. Like, there is like an interesting parallel with like various African cryptids, like Mokele Mbembe.
Oh, yes.
Where is it reported from? From the rainforest regions of Congo. And Congo, like, holy hell, the colonial history of Congo is like, it's literal hell. Like, Belgium should burn for what they've done to that country.
I mean, in a just world,
it is
I agree.
Interesting when you contrast it with like the aggressive behavior that is like imparted on Mokele Mbembe, which is like it kills everything it sees, and it's like this great draconic creature. And if Mokele Mbembe at any point really was like a native tradition, which is doubtful because like most accounts we have seem to indicate that it was like invented by white settlers. But if it really was such a thing, it may have originally been like some sort of symbolism for colonialists coming in and destroying everything.
Yeah, or like all these, like especially in the context of African cryptids, I think it's like a convenient way for the colonizing powers to, I don't really like this word much, but it's a way for them to basically other the place, like other as a verb.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's like an alien world populated with these like prehistoric monsters and stuff.
Yeah, there's like very racist undertones in those things when they say like Africa has gone unchanged since the time of the dinosaurs. And of course, the implication of that is always like that the people themselves also still live in the Stone Age, which, if you know much about African history, is not true.
No, not at all.
Of course, if you know about African evolution, about like all the new animal groups that evolved newly in Africa throughout the Kenozoic, you will see that it is not at all like this backwards place on Earth. It's like actually like one of the most evolutionary productive continents in
dynamic.
In Earth history, like proboscideans, humans, and a whole bunch of other modern, in quotations, animal groups come from there.
Freaking hyenas and big cats, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I believe hyenodonts may have also originated in Africa, which is like this archaic proto-carnivoran mammal group that was like very prominent in like the early Cenozoic.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's even like this whole big group of, if you want to go really deep time, real big group of mammals called the Afrotheria.
Yeah. I mean, that group still exists. That's the one that encompasses sea cows, elephants, hyraxes, aardvarks, golden moles, elephant shrews, and tenrecs. Yeah.
Oh, well, there's even like, I think a big subgroup of frogs called the Afro-Neurons, which
Yeah.
I could never forget after doing this deep dive research into all frogs, basically.
Are those the ones who wear like afros hair?
Mm,
Imagine them wearing like wigs like that. Wouldn't that be hilarious?
I don't know. I think
You
those
know,
were like,
these Afro ducks. Like there's like a duck breed that has like a special head shape so that it looks like they're wearing afros.
I have no idea. I have like, all I know about the Afro hairstyle was like in my home country, basically there was an advertising campaign that had like, basically if you used a certain credit card, you suddenly grew an afro hair, and for some reason you became cool and quirky, and they called this the bonus card. And so colloquially the name for afro became bonus hair. And it's just a weird way of cultural evolution and languages and popular culture and all that. So that's all I can say on the matter.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah,
So
back to like using cryptids to other people and places.
maybe let's take a hard detour back to Jersey Devil and let's
Yes.
apply the realistic scenario. Like, if this thing was real, what do you think it could have been?
I don't know, like if we discount like the wings,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that it's not unusual for various ungulates to sometimes walk on two legs.
Oh,
Like
yes,
deer
true.
can do
Very
that,
true.
like goats do that when they try to ram something. Uh, in Africa, there's like the Gerenuks, which do it even regularly so they can reach higher places. So I don't know, maybe
Oh,
the origin of this legend is just someone watching like deer walk on two legs for an extended amount of time, maybe in like the dark, in poor lighting conditions, and thinking, what the fuck is that kind of demon? What
yeah, could
incarnation?
be. I mean, it's like, if you wanna get speculative evolution about it, it could be a kind of American gazelle goat type ungulate, maybe with a short face, and it's evolved to like browse in thickets. So it's sometimes habitually like a meerkat rears on two legs and kind of like ambles about on in like the thick pine forests and stuff, grazing. So maybe it's like very well equipped to like raise itself on two legs. But if anyone threatens it, it can just drop down to two legs and just flee about. And that would be my like headcanon explanation too. And that's, I think, I mean, I'm certain that if both of us were better prepared, we could have gone into deeper dives about this thing. But I think the real Jersey Devil was the nice tangents we made along the way. So
And the devil
slowly,
is always
slowly,
in the detail.
yeah, very well said. So slowly, we are getting ready to wrap up this episode. Any last things you wanna say before we say goodbye to our millions and
Um,
millions of viewers, TK?
maybe we should get back to like the earthquake issue. Like maybe we should tell our viewers how they might support the victims in Turkey.
Oh yes, I mean, it's extremely harsh, but if you visit this channel's social posts tab, basically, last week I left a link showing all the associations in your relative country that you could donate to. The thing is, I think now that basically the rescue efforts are almost over, and the real hurdle is for humanitarian aid to the region. So I would tell everyone, just to, if they feel charitable, just to look in their own country's official organizations and basically study how they could donate. I mean, if you're in the US, the US Red Cross is a good thing. If you're in the UK, there are other charities that do this, but just type in Turkey earthquake aid, the name of your country. And if you feel like supporting, it's been a really harsh disaster. If you feel like supporting this effort, everybody would be very happy if you did that. And it kind of pales in comparison, but TK and myself also would be very happy if you supported us directly on our Patreons. The links are listed below. And if you...
And it's, apart from money, I think what is also important to donate is clothes, because there's so many people now, like it's the depths of winter and it gets very cold in that region. And a bunch of people are now without their belongings, without their houses, without their homes. So they really need clothes. So you can maybe also just donate your old clothes.
Yeah, I mean, you should definitely look into like donation drives for used clothing, and like basically there are people who lost everything, so nothing would be wasted. I mean, that's all I could say on this matter. And it's like really a front seat view of history happening. So that's from me. How about you, my friend? You're also like producing like remarkably good speculative evolution content.
Thank you.
And the link is hardesure.blogspot.com. Please check out TK's creations there.
Yeah. I'm working right now on turning some of those profiles into YouTube videos.
Oh, nice.
I can't guarantee if it will work out, but you will hopefully see soon what I'm doing.
All right. I mean, I, for one, would be looking forward to seeing it. And wherever you are in the world, we hope you stay safe, stay sane. It's a really changing world. And I mean, it's a real privilege to be able to speak about strange creatures and speculative evolution. But then again, maybe there has never been a better time. And that's all I can say about our time of monsters and disasters.
Yes. Anything else on the devil you want to say?
Well, I just missed chatting with you. And
wait.
No, I don't worship the devil.
I asked you what are your thoughts on the devil, and you said, "Oh, I miss chatting with you."
So yes, that's the thing. I miss chatting with you. No, I'm talking to you. I miss chatting with you so much that, I mean, Jersey Devil thing was kind of a throwaway subject, and I think we had more fun catching up than talking about the damn thing.
You just worded it very funnily.
Oh yes. If you play my podcast backwards, you can say Satan, Satan, Satan. It's the only way. No. Jokes aside, there was once a time in which I was blamed for being a Satanist because I had painted this big portrait of the Baphomet creature because I was in my 20s and like it was a single guy's age 20s house. So I wanted to have like a big centerpiece, and then it led to all sorts of weird stuff. But then when I moved out, this painting was so huge I couldn't take it anywhere, so I had to throw it out, basically. And then the Gezi Park riots happened, and weirdly, this painting turned out during the riots themselves. So
was someone like holding it up during the protests?
No, it was too big to be held up, but it was propped up next to a street, and like basically the police was chasing people in front of it.
And that's kind of funny. I don't know why.
I mean,
just like you imagine you painting like accidentally becomes like world history.
No, I think it was like it's manifest destiny in a way. Like, I'm sure it must have been like a surreal experience for anyone involved in that scene and in that chase. But just to see this 2-meter tall portrait of this Baphomet creature with a sort of insect-like face, it was like, I mean, one of the many deep lore adventures in my life.
isn't your like this like how do you say this, like this sigil of yours on your website kind of inspired by Baphomet?
It was kind of inspired. Actually, it was like one of my first experiments with human anatomy. So I basically posed in front of a mirror and then like superimposed a few shots together. So it looked like I had four arms and stuff. Then I started drawing lines around it. And then because, well, it kind of looked cringe, I changed the face and gave it these big horns. But I think there's something nice about an emblem like that. And I just simply kept using it because it was like a consistent part of my online brand kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I keep redesigning it. I redesigned it a few years ago. If I drew it again now, it would even be different. But I don't know. People like it, I think.
The history of Baphomet is kind of interesting because it was not originally meant to be like just a representation of the devil.
Yes.
Like it, basically, it's possible, like it's possible that this thing was never worshipped by anyone in earnest. It was just that the Knights Templar, during their famous trial with the Pope, they were accused of being devil worshippers who worshipped this thing called Baphomet. And it's possible that this whole thing is just like a hoax by the Catholic Church, so they could sue the Knights Templar for being Satanists, and so they could like deprive them of their statues and riches that they amassed in the Orient. But the interesting fact that the name Baphomet may have come from Mahomet, so like that this was originally like a caricature of the Prophet Muhammad by Christians.
Oh, yeah, that. I mean, that too. I think the whole thing with Knights Templar is they started out as Crusader protection group. And actually the reason they were suppressed was. Oh, okay.
Maybe turn off your camera now. Yeah, I think it's better now. Yeah. What did you want to say?
I mean, the whole reason they get a bad rap is because basically they became like the arbiters of trade between Jerusalem and Europe. So they grew extremely wealthy and they made a lot of enemies, and this led to a lot of slander. I mean, we think all of these things are very mystical now, but they were like very like in real world, real politic reasons why they acted and lived and died the way they did. I mean, it was like a kind of, it's difficult to make parallels in this day, but I mean, they became powerful for a reason and they were persecuted for that very same reason, probably.
Yeah.
All right. So that was the deepest lore on whether or not I'm a Satanist or crusade and stuff. But
you just today upload a video about like what was it, like esotericism versus skepticism.
Oh yes, that too. Okay, so I'm actually researching. I'm researching for a bigger video. Actually, it's gonna come soon. But I want to make some like off the cuff things, and I've got this like. So whenever like I receive a profound email from a friend or like some list of questions from a student fan or something like this, I always think it's like better to record answers as a YouTube video because it's easier than typing. And I mean, it brings people to my channel. So this was that question by a very long time friend online. And basically, they wanted to know where I was standing in mysticism versus skepticism. So it's just my responses. So there.
And it's the answer Satanism. No, okay, I'll stop now.
Okay.
So
okay.
Yeah, I think we said most things we can with the limited research we did.
Yeah.
We had a nice time talking.
I mean, what would you like to?
What?
What would you like us to talk about next? This is kind of like a disoriented episode, but I
Yeah.
think it's all the better for it. But
Well,
let us know.
I told you the options are, we talk about the Venus hypothesis paper, which I sent you once.
Hmm.
Then we wanted to do
Hmm.
like a
Hmm.
big episode on the atmospheric beast lore, which goes much beyond your video about the Bursa beast.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
And yeah, various other cryptids. And of course, our viewers can also suggest ideas in the comments. Like,
Yeah.
like I think a person wanted us to talk about cryptids we think might be real, and that would be a really interesting episode, I think.
Oh yes. Oh yes. We might actually do that. So from me until later, thank you, TK, for your time. Thank you to our viewers and everybody. Have a nice day.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.